Lovely, thank you. My name is Carol Hunter, and I'm Vice President of CPUN. And with me, I'm sharing the screen and the room with Liz Stallnecker, a board member. We'll do a little introduction with CPUN, and then I'm going to add a little bit of information. CPUN is the RNO, the Registered Neighborhood Organization for the Central Park community. And we're a forum for residents that live in Central Park to discuss and resolve issues. We're a network for communication, and we're a means of acting on matters of importance to the community as a whole. And we promote public service, civic discourse, collective efficacy. We're committed to providing an inclusive and welcoming environment for everybody, and we are an all-volunteer board and a registered 501c3. I wanted to add a little bit of information, and that is that something that I didn't know, which is that RNOs were set up in the 1970s, as a way for neighborhoods to be more proactive with the city and giving a voice to neighbors as to how to maintain and develop neighborhoods. In 1975, the INC, Inter-Neighborhood Cooperation, was formed, and that's the umbrella organization for the RNOs. We have at least 150. And Liz, do you have an idea of if it's much more than that?
No, I don't know. I don't know how many.
I've heard
but
under
there's 78 neighborhoods, and
Okay.
there's many that overlap their footprints. So.
Okay, so I'm going to just try to safely say that we have about 150 registered neighborhood organizations, and so we have quite the history, almost 50 years with RNOs in Denver, and the INC became an umbrella organization for RNOs, and RNOs receive notification of participatory opportunities that relate to everything from zoning and planning and other public policies. The INC meets the second Saturday morning of every month. And interestingly, at least to me, their committees really reflect much of what we do. They have a zoning and planning committee, which we do not have, but they have climate and sustainability, education, transportation, parks and recreation, and a DEI committee, and they welcome new members just as we do. When I think about it, and I am the delegate for the INC from CPUN, and in my own words, I sort of see it as this collaboration whereby we are aware of other communities' issues. I sometimes say it like we all know one another's business, and I mean that in a very healthy way. We support one another, we learn about our commonalities, and we get smarter together. So that's just a little extra information about RNOs and what sets us apart from so many other community organizations. Okay, next slide.
Hey, Carol, one comment is there's a lot of confusion sometime, and I think it's clear we are the registered neighborhood organization. We are not the master community association.
I'm so glad you said that instead of me. So thank you very much for that, Brian. There is confusion. I think that they think sometimes we're one and the same, or that somehow we are integrated in some capacity. And that is, we do keep one another informed. And sometimes I attend MCA meetings, but no, we are two very separate entities with different purposes, different goals, and different reasons for being. So thanks for that.
Yeah, one differentiation is, MCA is the HOA and is organized under that statute of the Colorado laws. We are a 501c3 non-for-profit. So that does make us different, that we effectively also can raise money for the community in that way.
Yeah, just one other distinction, I think, between CPUN and the MCA for folks needing a refresher is also the constituencies are slightly different because the MCA is a property owners association. It's paid into by property owners, but Central Park United Neighbors, as the registered neighborhood organization, is intended for both homeowners and renters, and for folks in the community. And so that's another distinction.
Very important distinction. Thank you. Appreciate that. So there's our agenda. And let's see, we have officer elections and then we have two new board member elections. And I did not check to see if our prospective board members are with us tonight, Chris and Tricia. So let's take a look and see if they are here.
There's an iPhone that's not.
I reached out to the iPhone, and I think because it's an iPhone, they can't see the chat.
Carol,
I'm on the call.
Chris Broderick is here.
Oh, hi, Tricia.
Yes,
Hi.
Chris, yeah, because it says Mary Gay Broderick on the thing. That's my wife's got the Zoom.
Okay,
Oh,
wonderful.
okay,
You're
great.
here. Welcome. Thank you. Okay, so we have officer elections next and then the two new board member elections. And what I think we'll do, we can do the officer elections, I hope, pretty quickly. And then let's give an opportunity to Tricia and to Chris to say something in a minute or two about themselves. And then if there's any questions, we can do that as well. And then we'll be ready for community partner. Okay, so let's do that. Let's switch to the next slide. There we go. So we have officer elections for president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer. For the election of officers, is there a nomination?
I would nominate Liz Stallnecker for president, Carol Hunter for vice president, Mark Maringer for secretary, and I'll nominate myself for treasurer.
Is there a second on that?
I second.
Is that Jamie?
Yes.
Hi, Jamie. Thank you.
Hi.
Are there any questions? In the chat?
Is Mark on the call?
Yes,
Mark,
Yes.
Yeah, I'm here.
So Mark, Matt said something about secretary. Did that ever come to be or no?
I met with him and explained the job, and he had said before he would be willing depending on the details, and I explained the details, and he was not interested. So, which is reasonable. He's also a new board member, so I didn't want to
Mark,
throw that much at him that fast. So
I told you to lie, man. I don't know what you're doing.
I know. That's one of my faults.
Any other questions? Any objections to the slate? And since we have a quorum, congratulations, everybody. Welcome, Liz,
Oh, thank you.
our new president.
Well, thank you. I guess I do want to say just really quickly that Jeff Horsfall had approached me back in February when he announced that he was going to be stepping down as president. And I think initially I had said, not really, haven't been thinking about this, and I'm not, and would need to talk to some folks. So I reached out to Carol and Mark and Brian and Amanda Allshouse on the executive committee and kind of talked through, what we see for what they saw for CPUN going forward, how we could collaborate. So I just want to thank them for, kind of the support and being sounding boards. And just to say that I think we're in a really interesting place in Central Park. We're 20 years into the build of kind of 20 years from when the community started, when folks started moving into the community. We're almost at full build out. And so I think that it's a good moment to take a second and pause and look at, well, what does it mean to be a registered neighborhood organization for a neighborhood or for a community that has over 30,000 residents? I mean, it's larger than, it's larger than like some of my siblings' hometowns. And so what does kind of community cohesion and community connection, like how do we connect with each other? And also how do we connect with our newly elected representatives? So we have a new mayor coming in, 3 new council members, new agencies over the next year. And so I'm really excited to work with folks and carve out what is our identity now and how do we relate to kind of all of these institutions and with each other. So thank you.
Lovely.
and Liz, CPUN will be 20 years old next summer. So
Oh, wow.
Ooh,
Yeah, so yeah, Brian, you had sent to me that the first resident moved to what was then Stapleton in October 2003. So then, yeah,
Wow.
the neighborhood. So we could do if there's Denver Days next summer, we could do a anniversary block party for the community. But I guess
Excellent.
that's future discussions.
okay.
Yeah,
Sign-
I'll dig out the agenda from the first meeting. I think it was in the summer because it was a pocket park on 29th Place.
Oh, wow.
I love that we have historians here.
Yeah, I think there's a kind of like depth and breadth of knowledge of the neighborhood. I think
Sure.
actually we need to go back to the previous slide, Mark, because I think the next item then is the board member vote for Chris Broderick and Tricia Houston.
What would they-
And so,
So, either one of you, Chris, why don't you start and take a minute or two to speak about yourself and share with us what you will.
oh, you're muted.
You're muted.
Hi, thanks, Carol, and thanks, Liz. Yes, I'm Chris Broderick, and I applied to be a member of CPUN. My background is, well, I'm retired now. My background is I was in journalism, including the Rocky Mountain News, covering City Hall when Pena was mayor, and then worked with Brian Weber when he was one of my reporters when Webb was mayor. So go back a long way in Denver. And then but I've been to Central Park now for 2.5 years. My wife and I, we really love this community. It's bigger than a neighborhood. I mean, it's a kind of a city, really, but it's part of the city. That's what's great about it. And I think as Liz mentioned, it's a great opportunity now, I think, with a new mayor, new council, new District 8. I mean, there's a lot on their plate already. And I think it'd be great if we're able to have more input into not just what's happening in Northeast, Denver, but just the city in general. My background is I was in communications. I was vice president of Portland State University in Portland, Oregon for 10 years. And I was in journalism for 30, including 12 at the Rocky Mountain News. So my main interests, I guess, are all the things that are listed, but certainly communications and marketing. That's kind of my background. And then education. I'm still freelance writing. In fact, I still do a lot of writing now. I'm writing for various publications covering mainly K-12 stuff and Denver Public Schools, and writing a lot about school safety, and we'll cover the board elections and so forth. So I'm trying to, this just is an opportunity to get as involved and informed as possible and hopefully help CPUN.
Thank you. Tricia?
Hi there. I am, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I'm in my car. I am Tricia Houston. I have been a resident of Central Park for 12 years now. And I own a mortgage company, Lending Maven Mortgage, here in Central Park, and I've been a mortgage broker lender for 25 years. I reached out to get involved in CPUN because I'm quite active in our community with our schools, school boards, and just many different organizational groups and Facebook groups and whatnot. And I wanted to get involved in the traditional organization here, just to bring in another voice to the community of a lot of the items that we're seeing, and how I could help and sort of spread the word and give a little bit more boost to CPUN to help spread the word and get more people involved so that there's more community voice that is happening. So I'm looking forward to it, and I'm happy to help in any possible way.
Lovely. Thank you. So Brian, are we doing this in the same way in terms of the vote? Oh, I'm sorry. Are there any questions? Let me ask that first of either Chris or Tricia.
I don't have any questions, no.
Okay, I'm not hearing from anyone else, so I'm assuming that we're good on
Yeah,
that.
and I'm not seeing any raised hands.
Okay, So Brian, how are we doing this vote?
You just, it's a board vote. You just ask if there's any objections and then.
Okay, lovely. Any objections to the two candidates, Chris Broderick and Tricia Houston? Don't see anything in the chat.
No.
Okay. Lovely. Congratulations. Thank you both and welcome.
Yes, welcome to the board.
Welcome to the board.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, I don't have one of those confetti things that
Oh,
explodes.
we should
I
have
should have
thought of
done
it.
that. Oh, well. Next time we'll do it. Okay, let's move on. We have several community updates and let's go to the
Next
next slide. Okay. Let me just check real quickly with Amanda, are you with us or Councilman Herndon?
Amanda Steffen is in the.
Yeah, Amanda
Yeah.
Steffen, sorry.
Yep, I saw.
There
I'm
is,
here.
okay.
I have to tell you, Chris is on city council right now, and I know we thought maybe 6:45-ish, but given where we were in the agenda, I texted him and said, there's no way it's going to be 6:45. So if you want to just go through as
Sure.
it's listed, I'll give him a heads up that he's got a couple minutes to try and make it on here briefly.
Well, we appreciate that accommodation. That's good of you.
Mhm.
So let's just go with DPD and we'll just go in order.
Well, hey, good evening, everyone. Thanks, Carol.
Hi.
I'm Kevin Hines. I'm a lieutenant for Sector 1 of District 5 with DPD. And most of you know where that is by now. If you don't, it's Central Park. So I'm joined tonight by Community Resource Officer Danae Ferenz. She'll also speak in just a moment. When we were planning for this meeting, one of the things you guys asked us about was stuff that's relevant to summer. And one of the things I wanted to talk about tonight was bike safety and security. As some of you may be aware, June 28th next week is Bike to Work Day. We're going to have a lot of folks out biking to work, and we thought it would be a good time to talk about some of the biking safety. And to give you a little background on this, I'm sort of an avid cyclist myself. I bike a couple thousand miles a year. I've also been a bike certified officer with the Denver Police Department for the last 15 years. So I've spent a lot of time on bikes out in the Denver community myself. So first, talking about Bike to Work Day, we will have a booth for District 5 that's co-located with Northeast Transportation Connections at their annual location out near 29th and Roslyn. So if you are out riding your bike that day, please stop by and see us. If you're out driving a car that day, please be aware that a lot of folks are going to be out on bikes, so keep an eye out for them and keep them safe. And if you have a chance to ride a bike to work, it's a great day to do it. We're going to be out there with a booth, and one of the things we're doing this year is partnering with an organization called 529 Garage, and we're going to be doing bike registrations. So 529 Garage has kind of an innovative program for bike registrations that works nationally and even internationally. They have special, they call them shields that you can put onto your bike with a registration QR code or number on it. And the idea here is that you register your bike through the app. It's free of charge. And if your bike is ever stolen, it goes into this national database that also communicates with our databases through NCIC and CCIC. So in the event that your bike is stolen, it makes it much easier for us or other agencies to locate your bike and return it to you if it's found. And normally the registration stickers for 529 Garage cost $10 or $15. We're registering bikes free of charge at the Bike to Work Day event. We're going to be out there from about 6:30 to 9:30 in the morning. And if we have any extra stickers left over, we'll have them available at the station. But we'd love to get your bike registered and help keep it safe from criminals. On the bike issue, I also want to talk about road safety a little bit. A lot of people are out riding these days. We have more trails than ever. Some of these trails are along roadways, and people are often asking me how to stay safe on bikes. So one of the things you can do is use front and rear lights on your bike. Even during daytime hours, I always ride with a rear red strobe on my bike. It makes you vastly more visible to other drivers on the road. You can also use a front flashing white light. That helps as you're approaching vehicles to make you seen. It's much more visible than even wearing brightly colored clothing, which is also a good idea. Another thing I always tell people to be aware of, especially if you're on some of the bike trails, that go counterflow to traffic and cross over lanes of traffic is if you are ever approaching from the passenger side of a right turning vehicle, be very aware of that vehicle if you're crossing in front of it on a bike path. We see a lot of accidents because drivers who are making right turns tend to look to the left and only watch for oncoming traffic to the left. If you're approaching from the right on your bicycle, it's very easy for them to miss you and run you over going to them. And to me, when I've been on bike patrol, I've seen it happen on a number of accidents I've investigated. The other things you can do is pick smart bike routes if you're out biking to work, or just recommend what kind of lanes they are, if they're protected lanes or if they're share the road kind of lanes. I'm going to put the link for that website in the chat here in just a moment, but that's something I encourage everybody to look at so you can pick safe routes where you will be more protected from traffic when you're out there. Another thing I want to talk about that went into effect as of April of 2022, this is a safety stop law. So one of the most dangerous places for cyclists out on the road is in intersections. And to make intersections a little safer, from a safety stop program statewide, it's been in place in other states. Essentially what this means, the short version of it is that bicyclists and users of other low-speed conveyances, such as electric scooters, not mopeds, but electric scooters, wheels, and things of that nature, can now respond to stop signs as if they were yield signs and traffic lights as if they were stop signs. So if you approach a traffic light and come to a stop and see that there's no traffic and it's safer for you to cross that intersection against the red light, you can do that. There are times when that can make it a lot safer for bicyclists, especially when more traffic's approaching and you're going to end up with right turning traffic and things like that that can be a hazard to you. So please keep that law in mind. And also, if you're out there driving, be aware that cyclists may be doing this. Even with this law in effect, I've had people yell at me and tell me that I was doing it wrong. And I even carry flyers explaining the new law to people. But don't get into a road rage situation if you're on a bike. Remember, you're on a bike and cars are much heavier. Don't take the bait if somebody's getting upset. But if you're driving or biking, just be aware of that new law. And the final thing I want to talk about, because I don't want to take up too much of the time tonight, is some theft prevention. Obviously, I already mentioned registering bikes is really important. And if you are out and about and locking your bike up, only use bike racks that are positioned in well-trafficked and very visible locations. Thieves don't like to be seen stealing bikes in front of people. If you go to a location where the bike rack's located in an alley, for instance, a thief is much more likely to target that bike rack because they can be hidden from view when they're stealing your bike. Also, don't lock your bikes outside overnight if you can avoid it. If you do lock a bike out overnight, generally it's good to do that with a cheap commuter bike and not your $10,000 carbon fiber road bike, things of that nature. If you're locking your bike up, use high quality locks and consider using a double lock system like a U-lock and a cable lock, or a U-lock and a chain. But be aware that virtually every lock on the market can fail to a high-speed grinding attack from a battery-powered angle grinder in a matter of seconds. I have personally tried cutting $200 bike chain from a bike store using an angle grinder, and I got through it in 20 seconds. So know the risk and what you're locking up. I've mentioned this a million times on these meetings, but make sure you shut your garage door too, because we see a lot of bikes stolen from garages. And finally, don't trust your vehicle mounted bike rack to be a secure location to secure your bike. We've seen many cases where those locks on those racks are defeated and people steal bikes from bike racks. So again, I don't want to monopolize too much time. I know there's a lot of content for tonight, but I just thought it would be a good time to talk about that bike safety because the weather's finally gotten nice outside in Denver and a lot more people are out on their bikes. We want to keep everybody safe and prevent some of those thefts this year. Before I move on, I know Officer Ferenz, Technician Ferenz now, she was promoted, was going to present when we had our next commanders meeting coming up. I know she had that date. And I'm going to share that link in the chat. Unless anybody had any questions for me, I'll conclude it there in the interest of time.
Good evening, everybody. So just really quick, our commanders meeting is every month, the third Thursday at 6 p.m. virtually. Next meeting will be July 20th at 6 p.m. virtually. We'll put that link out for everybody to join. Apologies, last week we did have to cancel our commanders meeting last week. It was a very crazy week for us with the Nuggets championship and all the celebrations going on. So we were really tied up with that. So we look forward to continuing the commanders meetings July 20th at 6 p.m. And that's all I have.
Got it. Thank you so much. Do we have a representative from the MCA on? Give updates.
Okay.
No, oh, sorry,
We will from Gary.
I don't know why we're giving a thumbs up. We don't need to be. But okay, so we'll move on to the library, Sam Gary Library.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good, okay. So yeah, I'm John Flanagan from the Sam Gary Library, and actually kind of handing the baton off today. I've been representing the library for a couple of years here at CPUN, which I've appreciated. But I have a new colleague named Daria Marchenko, who you may have seen at the Sam Gary Idea Lab in the past, here and there, but she is now a full-time colleague of mine, and she's going to be handling community outreach for the library. So I thought it would be nice to introduce her and let her take over. She's got just a couple quick updates here. So the floor is yours, Daria.
Awesome. Thank you, John. You guys can hear me okay? Yeah, awesome. Hello, everybody. My name is Daria, and the news that I have for you are that, first of all, our DLab does have new hours that have started just last week. So the day stays the same, but the makerspace is now closed for 30 minutes in the middle of the open lab session. So the specific hours are weekdays 1 to 3, and then 3:30 to 5:30. On Saturday, it's going to be at 12 to 2, and then 2:30 to 4:30. Next up, the Summer of Adventure is still in full swing. If your kids aren't registered yet, now is a great time to do that. This year, the challenge is to complete 15 different activities of their choice around reading, making, or exploring. You can register online, and you can come to the branch to pick up your activity brochure. Your kids do need to be present to claim their prizes. We are also holding a lot of fun activities for Summer of Adventure, different programs for kids and families at the branch. So check out the event calendar. I'm going to put a few links in the chat. Next up, Sam Gary branch also has hired a full-time security staff who actually started today. So be on the lookout. There's going to be a new face next time you visit, so definitely say hello. And also, as you know, Denver Days, it's going to be happening at the beginning of August. It's a program during which we're encouraged to get to know all of our neighbors. There's picnics, block parties, different community involvement events that are happening. So Sam Gary is actually throwing a really fun Denver Days party on August 6th. It's going to be a bubble party. It's going to be happening right outside the branch, and we're going to be making heated bubble wands. We're going to be playing with soap bubbles, and we're going to be enjoying some delicious boba tea. That's all I have. Thank you so much.
Great. Welcome, Daria, and thank you. I see that Councilman Herndon is on, and I know there's a city council meeting tonight. So I think we'll jump to you, Councilman Herndon, if you want to speak now. And then we'll go down the list of community partners.
Hello, everybody. I just wanted to hop on and say thank you. This will be my last time to speak to you as your District 8 representative on Denver City Council. It's been a wonderful 12 years. And I'm just really expressing gratitude for these past 12 years. And I want to tell you thank you for these opportunities, and thank you to all the people who serve on Central Park United Neighbors, because you volunteer to do this, and I appreciate you advocating on behalf of the community. So Liz is absolutely right. I hopped off. We're on our last public hearing, but we have a significant number of speakers, so I was going to hop back on, but I just wanted to express my gratitude to you all and say thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay, we'll move on to Northeast Transportation Connections.
Yes. Yeah. Good evening, everyone. I just have a few community updates. RTD is offering zero fare for better air, and that is through the month of August. So the RTD rides are free from July to August. So you still have another couple of months. Also, Bike to Work Day is next week. It's next Wednesday, June 28th. We will still have our Stanley Marketplace station in the morning from 6:30 to 9. But we are transitioning to Heart Family Cyclery and Glacade Coffee, which is right down the street from Stanley Marketplace. So they will also have breakfast items over there from 6:30 to 9, and we're having our first after party this year, which is from 4:30 to 7 p.m. at Heart Family Cyclery and Glacade Coffee. We'll have some entertainment, we'll have some food, meatless options, we'll have some beer and also non-alcoholic beer. So it's our first after party that NETC is hosting. So hope to see you guys there. And also our bike lockers at the Central Park Station are up. So we're still in the testing phase. So have a little grace with us as we figure it out if you do try to rent one. If you're looking at the station, the bike lockers are on your left. You can scan those with your phone. It makes you download an app. Make sure your location and your Bluetooth is on. It's going to allow you to rent that locker for free. And NETC is sponsoring this at the Central Park the Central Park train station. And those are the updates from NETC. Hope to see you all for Bike to Work Day. Come check out our new station. We'll have some good snacks at Glacade. We'll have some pastries in the morning and some coffee and some snacks in the evening too. So hope to see you guys.
Great, thank you. And if you have any links that you can share in the chat for any of those events that you mentioned, that would be great.
Okay, I'll put the dates in the chat for you.
Great, thank you.
No problem.
I think that we have just kind of jumping around just a little bit. We'll have an MCA update, but right now I know that also that Chantel Lewis, who is the councilwoman-elect, is also on the call, and I think she was going to just give a quick hello, and then we can do the MCA update.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm here. So I am also at the ECNA board meeting or RNO meeting, and so I do apologize that I'm trying to do both of these at the same time. Hi, everyone. My name is Chantel Lewis. I am the newly elected councilwoman for District 8, and I'm very, very excited about this opportunity and the opportunity to work alongside of each of you, and just wanted to pop in really quickly and say hello. And happy to answer any questions, although I'm not officially sworn in until July 17th, but that has not stopped folks from making requests. And so I am tracking those requests for when I am formally in that seat, but happy to take any questions, comments, or concerns that you all might have. But just wanted to come and say hello. So hello, folks.
Great, thanks.
Great, thanks, Eddie.
No questions.
No questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Echo going on. Sorry, folks. But thank you, Chantal. I think if Jack Stewart, if you have an update for the MCA, feel free to.
Everybody, it is great to see you as always, and our pools are open with some 90-degree weather the last couple of days. We have we are reminded again how much our pools are loved by everybody. You can get exact hours, exact information about when our pools are open. All 7 of them in all portions of the neighborhood. They're open every day of the week. You can get hours on our website. That's mca80238.com. Our event season, although the first couple got poo-pooed due to a little rain, but we are excited to have our events calendar up and running on Thursdays each week until August. The Moja Blue Concert Series will occur in its 6th year, at the Conservatory Green Amphitheater. And then on Fridays and Saturdays, you will, on an alternating basis, we'll have movies on the green and concerts on the Founders Green Amphitheater. You can get exact times and information again on our website. That's mca80238.com. Our annual beer festival, the Central Park Beer Festival, that is on July 15th. Tickets are now on sale for the beer festival. If you want to visit our website, you can get those tickets at their early bird prices. They will go up next month. And then as a reminder, we will be closing streets in the area of Founders Green for the beer festival event. So we appreciate your understanding and apologize now for that inconvenience. In August, our annual kids triathlon is happening again. We look forward to kiddos who might be interested in participating in the triathlon. Registration is now open for that as well, and you can get more information on our website. You might have heard, hopefully got an email from us yesterday regarding an unfortunate string of burglaries that occurred at our Maverick and Splash Landing pool facilities. Wanted to provide an update to everyone regarding that. With our partners at the Denver Police Department, an investigation is ongoing. Safes were stolen from those facilities, as well as power tools and other materials. All of our pools are secured with a pretty sophisticated surveillance system. The one downfall of our surveillance system is it requires Wi-Fi, and one of the first things that the suspects did was stole the Wi-Fi modem, thereby rendering our surveillance system unusable because there was no Wi-Fi. So we are looking for support. Anybody that might live adjoining the Maverick or Splash Landing pools, if you don't mind taking a look at your Ring doorbells from about 3:30 a.m. to around 5 a.m. Yesterday would be Monday the 19th. Take a look, see if maybe you got a vehicle in the area or an individual that might have been leaving those locations, and we will hopefully be able to provide that to our partners at the police department while we continue to investigate. Both pools are open, both pools are running. Damage was minimal, and we were able to quickly recover and resolve those incidents. We continue to experience, after hours pool use, pool hopping, and we appreciate when folks reach out to us, let us know about that. We hear you, we understand your frustration. Kids making lots of noise in the pool in the middle of the night is definitely a nuisance, and we are trying our best to prevent those. We have been installing higher fences and eliminating access points into facilities throughout the summer now, and we have contracted a security vendor to also provide assistance with resolving some of those issues. So while we know it is quite annoying and quite a nuisance when we have kids enjoying the pools after hours, please know that we are working and utilizing all the resources we have at our disposal to attempt to resolve those issues. If you have additional questions about pool security, anything like that, you can reach out to me directly. My email is communityservices@mca80238.com. We also encourage you to visit our monthly delegate meeting that's held the Wednesday after our CPUN meetings. So we will meet tomorrow, 12 p.m. It's a hybrid meeting, Zoom and in person at the Cube. That's 8371 Northfield Boulevard, or you can get the Zoom link off our website. That's mca80238.com. Last thing, and then I'll turn the floor back to you, Liz. We also appreciate the support and understanding of our neighbors who have lost access to their garages over the last couple of weeks as we have been replacing alley concrete. All of our alleys have, the concrete has about a 20-year lifespan, and as the neighborhood gets to be into its 20s, we are realizing that our alleys are cracking and failing in places. And as we identify failing and broken alleys, we are working to replace those. But that unfortunately means that for a short time, usually about a week, you lose access to your garage through the alleys. So if you have additional questions regarding alleys, those types of works, I am the project manager for that operation. You're welcome to reach out to me at that same email or give us a call here at the office, 303-388-0724. Always love summer because summer's our favorite time in this neighborhood, and we are here to make the neighborhood unique. So please reach out with any questions. Thank you.
Hey, Jack, I noticed that you didn't mention the 4th of July parade.
Yes, that one did escape me. 4th of July parade will happen as it usually does on the 4th of July. Begins 10 a.m. that morning, followed by the parade down 29th Avenue and back to Founders Green. Pancake breakfast is at Founders Green, 29th and Roslyn, and then the parade will follow shortly thereafter. So thank you for catching that, Brian.
There's also the July 4th pool reservations. Did you mention that open tomorrow at noontime, I think? So I was going to throw the link for the reservations in the chat as well.
Correct. You'll want to use your ActiveNet account. Members will need to log in, make a reservation. There will be limited day of availability, but 4th of July is one of our busiest days at the pool, so we do require reservations. Reservations are only required 3 days a year. That's Memorial Day, the 4th of July, and Labor Day, and that's just to help us reduce those crowd sizes. Right, each pool has a maximum capacity, and will fill up within minutes of the pool being open. So with our reservation system, we are hopeful that we are able to serve more of the community and more of our members to be able to utilize the pool during these holidays.
Great. Thank you, Jack. And I think with that, we've completed the community partner updates and can move to the next slide, which is, actually, I think since Daria mentioned the Denver Days block party for the library, we can kind of skip over this. But just if anybody else, the Denver Days, you can do a block party for your own, kind of hyper local area, literally your block, and you can get free picnic reservations and also street barriers for the block parties. So go to denvergov.org/Denver Days. And you can learn more about how to do that. And the deadline to register your block party or picnic is July 21st. And we can move on to the next slide. Okay, so our next agenda item is the CPUN committee overview, kind of a committee 101. So this is an opportunity for folks to learn a little bit more. So we have our monthly meeting, but then there's a number of committees that do, I guess, a lot of programming, or it varies from committee to committee. And so instead of a speaker for tonight's meeting, we're going to do an overview of the different committees within CPUN, talk about different goals and needs and how folks can get involved. Next slide. So I'll start. I think that as we go through each of these slides, if the chairs or co-chairs of the committees can take each slide. So I'm currently, along with Mandel Rousseau, a co-chair of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. So our committee has a mission statement. It's 3 parts. So we strive to inform, educate, and engage with residents of the Central Park community around equity and diversity issues affecting every community member. We also advocate for and elevate all community voices by encouraging greater representation of and reducing disparate impacts to underrepresented groups within Central Park. We provide guidance and recommendations as needed to the CPUN board to ensure that all board actions are reflective of and informed by the diverse population and perspectives in our community. I don't have this on the slide, but some of our accomplishments in, I would say, for our committee. We said kind of to understand what the needs are around diversity, equity, and inclusion in the community. We actually put out a survey that was specific to DEI issues in 2020, I think it was fall 2021, and then kind of crunch some of the numbers and put together a short presentation on some of the findings from that survey, and then subsequently have folded some of our DEI questions into the annual survey that generally gets sent out by CPUN. So you'll see some of those, and I'm happy to share the presentation that we did from the results of that survey. And then also we there was a community member last year in 2022 had brought to us some very specific experiences with essentially just kind of people questioning. It was somebody who lives in the neighborhood, a Black woman with her granddaughter on one of our playgrounds. And she talked about multiple experiences she had had where people questioned whether she lived in the neighborhood or whether she belonged. And we also were contacted by other folks in the community about being approached the same way. And so we actually wrote a letter to the community as we started pool season and summertime last year. And I can send that out in the notes, just linking to it, just with a reminder that these things are happening. Here's how we can talk with each other and with our families about including about microaggressions and how to actually in practical ways be more inclusive in how we interact with our neighbors in Central Park. And then last fall, we also had a meetup and since I feel like we're still kind of getting off the ground having in-person meetings, we wanted to have a family-friendly meetup with other folks who are interested in diversity, equity, and inclusion issues in the neighborhood, and just had kind of a pizza dinner at one of the playgrounds to talk and just to talk in person and really connect with folks. So those are some of the activities we've done. We want more and varied perspectives. We'd like new members of the committee, and since I am now the president of the board, we would also like to have a new co-chair for the DEI committee so that we can kind of keep the capacity of that committee moving while I can step back from it. So if you're interested, we meet the fourth Tuesday of the odd numbered month. So just January, March, May, July, September, and November from 6 to 7 p.m. on Zoom. Would like to move some of that to be more in person. If you're interested, we actually have an email address. It's DEIcommittee@centralparkunitedneighbors.com, and we'd love to have you. So if anybody has any questions, I can answer them. Otherwise, we can move on to the next slide. Oh, sorry. I don't see any questions in the chat. I don't think I see any raised hands. So Education Committee.
Hi, I am co-chair of the Education Committee, and along with Amanda Allshouse, and Brian Weber is here as well, and I'll tell you why that's important in just a moment. The purpose is to inform the community regarding decisions, actions, and the needs certainly of DPS, Denver Public Schools. There is a lot going on with Denver Public Schools right now, as you know, I'm sure you all know. And we also would like to be providing more learning opportunities for all ages. As far as accomplishments, we've organized forums in the past for school board candidates. We will have a election this fall in November for a new school board candidate. I think there are 2 candidates right now as things stand. We facilitated conversations with DPS administrators and the superintendent regarding decisions that have had a direct impact on Central Park schools. And we're in the process of creating a means to support Central Park students and school staff academically, socially, and emotionally. And that's one of the reasons that Brian Weber is here, and I'm going to give him a chance to elaborate on that. As far as needs, I like the whole perspective that that Liz mentioned, that we're looking for various perspectives. I'd like to see some students on our committee. We need to be marketing support for students and school staff. We really need to do that in conjunction with the push that we're making with the volunteer effort we're going to be making. We want to build a large cadre of residents who will support students and school staff. And I am compiling a list of many, many ways to do that. And there is a website, and you can see it there, cpsvols.org. Our goal is providing information to residents about upcoming school board elections. We need to know resident concerns regarding community schools, and we need to educate and recruit residents as to student needs and subsequent support. Right now, we're meeting the second Tuesday of the month at 5, and it is open to change. I know it's hard to accommodate everyone, and we're trying to figure out how to be able to do that and to make our committee meetings more accessible, but we are open to changes to accommodate volunteers. So I'll just ask if Amanda wants to say anything, and then Brian, if you'll add to that, that would be really helpful. Thanks.
Hey, Carol, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I appreciate everything that you said, and I'll second all of it. I think the other thing I wanted to add is just that we would encourage people to get involved with, the school that their children attend, or the school closest to their home if they don't have a child in the school. And then, that's an immediate way to get involved, and then to bring information that they learn at the school level back to the committee. And so I think that we'd like to, first strengthen each school, and then bring together, when people have extra capacity, synergy to improve schools across the community.
You're right. Thanks, Amanda.
Okay.
Brian, do you want to add anything?
Sure. Excuse me. Good evening. I'm Brian Weber. I work for the former Stapleton Foundation, which is now the Foundation for Sustainable Urban Communities. I work on education issues, and I work closely with Carol and the Education Committee. What we wanted to mention tonight was my foundation built a website called Central Park School Volunteers. And it is every school in Central Park has a page on this site on which it can post its needs related to volunteers and resources. And we are putting together a team of volunteers to be contacts with each school that would, and every week to 2 weeks, contact those schools to find out what their needs are, and then we will post them on that site. This goes along with another site that we built. It's called the Central Park Education News, and it's CPUN, CPED.org. It's a news site covering Central Park schools and DPS. It's up and it's doing really well, and I'd encourage you to go to it and check it out. But we're also particularly interested in getting people to help us with the school volunteer effort. We're simply looking for folks to reach out to each school, and it's a very simple obligation, and you can contact Carol or myself. I can be reached at bweber@fsucommunities.org. And encourage you to get in touch and find out more about this or help us out. So, and you'll be hearing more about this in August as the school year kicks in. But we're very excited about this. We think, and as Amanda mentioned, we'd like to get people who from each school, people to get more involved and help bring more support for each school, and because they need it. And there's a lot of capacity in this community, and we'd like to help channel it to them. So Carol, would you like to add anything to that?
No, I think that was a good introduction, and you'll be getting more information about that. And I like the way you said that. There is great capacity here to help on so many levels. And that's partly, it is why I'm making the list that I'm making. So we'll see more about that. Thanks, Brian.
Right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Next slide. Okay. Jeff, are you able to speak about the Jeff or Sandra to speak about safety?
Yeah, and we can give a quick overview here. Sandra, feel free to jump in. I don't have anything as sophisticated as what we've just seen for the Education Committee. This is just sort of a high-level overview of this committee, because the truth is that we are still trying to figure out exactly what we're going to do with this committee and how we're going to have the most impact over the next year. It used to be called the Safety Committee, and this was going back a number of years, and it was primarily organized around the issue of crime in the neighborhood as we were starting to grow. And strangely, the issues seem to be the same. Garage doors are open, and bikes and things like that. But one of the things we did last year is that we tried to broaden our scope a bit and we brought health into the equation. So now we're the Health and Safety Committee. And one of the reasons for that was that one of the issues that came up a lot last year and in the last few years has been the issue of homelessness and unhoused people, potentially in the neighborhood, potentially around our neighborhood in the green spaces. And in some ways it was unclear exactly where that issue would fall. It was sort of seen as a safety issue by some people, but the truth is that we saw it more as a health issue, not just for residents, but also for obviously people who don't have houses and are dealing with the issues associated with that. However, it's not just homelessness that we want to address in this committee. Ideally, we'd also like to look at other issues. Mental health is one that we think is important, particularly with, when people moved into this neighborhood when it first started, everyone had young kids, and now they're turning into teenagers and college kids and all that kind of thing, which is fantastic. But we realize that there are issues around mental health in our neighborhood as well that are probably not being addressed in any kind of a systematic way, or at least we're not necessarily getting information out to residents around resources that they could get related to this. So that's the general idea for increasing our scope to health and safety from just the safety committee. Our meeting dates are currently the last Thursday of the month at 6. However, we have not had a meeting for a number of months, and apologies for that. The truth is that Jack was our chair last year and really was sort of our guiding light and our impetus to have our meetings and all that kind of thing. And he's taken on other responsibilities, so he had to drop off the committee. And it's just really Sandra and me and some people potentially outside of CPUN. But we've sort of dropped the ball a bit on the meetings, and we apologize for that. And we are hoping to gear those up in the coming months. As I said, the objective here is to address both health and safety issues in Central Park, range from neighborhood crime to mental health to community approaches to health in general. I would say that in terms of needs, what we could really use are our new members. It's been a really small committee going forward, and obviously it has a very large kind of area that we could cover. In some ways that can be a little bit paralyzing. So we would be interested in people who like these issues and might want to come to join our committee and even maybe spearhead some new issues that are important to them. So I would say that's our main need. And then the goal, like with all these things, is to become a bit of a conduit for information between the community and DPD. And then also what we would like to do is if there's a way to reach out to maybe some health organizations and become a conduit for that. But again, that is pretty ill-defined at this point. But the goal would be to possibly grow in that area as well. Sandra, is there anything you'd like to add or anything that I've left out at this point?
No, not really. I think you said it beautifully. I just want to support everything that you've said. We had a wonderful, strong committee under Jack's leadership. And we are down to just Jeff and I, mainly because the other committee members had other opportunities or they moved out of Central Park. So it's just down to Jeff and I. And so we're really looking for new committee members so we can fully flesh out what is the Health and Safety Committee going to do from here on out.
Thanks, Sandra. Yeah, and I'll put my email address. I mean, obviously you can reach out to either me or Sandra through the website, but I'll put my email address in the chat just in case anyone wants to reach out. And like I said, we'll start with the meetings in the next couple months. I think, maybe we'll start in July. Hopefully we'll have more than just me and Sandra meeting at that. So that would be another goal of ours. But like I said, we would welcome anyone with interest in any of these issues to join us.
Great, thank you. And just in the chat, I put a link to a Google form where anybody, particularly the new board members too, and anybody else in the community, where you can express your interest in joining any of these committees. And so now on to Safe Streets, and I think that's Amy Campbell.
Yes, hi. My name is Amy Campbell. I'm the co-chair of the Safe Streets Committee with Carol Hunter. And the purpose of our committee is to keep the community informed about issues that affect our street infrastructure and to assist our residents in becoming advocates for walking, biking, and rolling through the neighborhood. You can read some of the accomplishments of our last year. We worked hard to host informational meetings with representatives from both the city and non-city entities, basically as an education opportunity for the people who attended the meetings. And they're posted on the CPUN YouTube channel as well, so you can watch them anytime. And we also saw some strong increased engagement from people in the neighborhood, working around their kind of street or neighborhood specific initiatives, and also a good engagement on social media. As other people have mentioned, we can always use new members with their particular perspectives and their skills that they can bring to the committee. And our goals are to provide information about this topic, to learn about concerns from people who live in the neighborhood regarding their streets, and to educate those residents about how to advocate to change their built environment if they don't like it. And we hope to interface with the city to relay these concerns we're hearing and to help influence decisions that are being made at a city level that affect the Central Park neighborhood. So we typically meet the first Tuesday of every other month at 3 p.m. on Zoom. Again, that's open to change depending on the most active members of the committee. And we will have occasional in-person meetings that are not at that time. Like our most recent meeting was in person at 5 p.m, sort of happy hour type meeting. And if you're interested, I put my email address and Carol's on the slide, and I can also add my email address to the chat, and happy to take any questions.
I don't have a question, but I do want to give a big shout out to Amy. Amy's not on the board, and Amy works tirelessly for this committee, and she's a bicyclist herself, and she's a volunteer in her son's school at Isabella Bird. She's just a wonderful community member, and she's a smart cookie, and I appreciate her very much.
Thank you, Carol. I forgot to ask if you wanted to add anything to the slide, but maybe that's what you wanted to add.
We're good.
That about does it. I think we're running a little behind, so we'll move. Thank you, Amy. And we'll move on to outreach and communications. Mark Maringer, do you want to talk about this one?
Yeah, happy to take this on. I generally am one of the co-chairs of this because I'm the secretary. This is mostly a shall we say, functional committee with regard to how does CPUN interface with the community. So, for example, because I'm involved, one of the things that I would do with this committee would be involved in is, for example, our annual survey or community survey that I think somebody referenced earlier. I try to facilitate that through this committee. So we'll outreach to other committees and find out what kind of questions they want to have, and then also see what the officers are interested in. We also have a subcommittee for the outreach and communications that is specifically focused on fundraising, specifically because our email list is not free to be able to have that large of a list. We have over 9,300 residents in our email list, and we need to pay thousands of dollars a year to be able to send out to that many people on a regular basis. So we have a fundraising subcommittee that meets kind of separately if anybody's interested in doing some fundraising. But that's kind of an offshoot of that because it helps fund our infrastructure in terms of being able to have our communications broadly. We generally, our schedule for meeting is a little bit hit or miss because we've also kind of intersperse the meeting times with executive committee meetings of the officers or with the committee chairs. So we may need to reorganize that or consider what to do. But generally, we've been meeting on the second Wednesdays of each month at 7 p.m. on Zoom. And when we have meetings, that'll go up on our website. Anybody who's interested, we're particularly interested in finding some folks who can help or needing to organize our outreach on social media a little bit better. We haven't had quite as integrated of an approach there, but one of the big goals for us for the year, or from my perspective, is to have our committee in place where we can, help share with the rest of the community whatever our other committees are doing. So whether that be an event or meetings or whatnot, making sure that it's clear to those committees what they need to do or what we can do as an organization to spread the word with the community about what's going on. And we have a specific email address for that, where you can just email secretary@centralparkunitedneighbors.com. If anybody ever takes over for me at that, they'll then have access to all those emails, and they'll still get responded to, even if I'm missing in action for some reason. So that's it for outreach communications, unless anybody has any questions.
Well, one thing that I know, we have a couple of new board members who have either communications or website design experience, and I had added to the slide just some of the needs. That was something we had talked about, was some decision making around the website, and then kind of either other forms of outreach. So I just want to encourage any board members who have specific skills and experience or expertise in those areas, that please join the outreach committee. And then next slide.
So this one's me again. Sustainability has been on a little bit of a pause for a few months because one of our co-chairs was doing something, was engaged in campaign, and now and I was focused on one of our major fundraising events, which was the Central Park Classic mini golf tournament that went very well last month. So I'm able to return to this. So we'll be meeting the second Tuesday at 7 p.m. on Zoom in July in particular. We will be discussing in July what our objectives will be for the year. But some of the things we've done in the past, and the way we've usually tried to focus the committee, is mostly on the gathering information that we know people have expressed interest in the community regarding sustainability topics. Those have covered things like electric vehicles, turning your grassy areas into something that's a little less water intense or a little more natural. And then also there's been a big push in recent years through the city for electrifying your home or making it more energy efficient. So we've hosted different speakers and events on those topics, including as recently as I think January and February, having topics about putting in native grasses instead of your standard Kentucky bluegrass and what that ends up looking like. We hope to do similar events like that in the past. We've also helped organize or coordinate volunteer days with Sand Creek Regional Greenway, and we hope to do that again in the future. But there's quite a range of things that we can do in the next year. So in July, we'll focus on what are our priorities for the coming year among all those topics, and see what people are willing to help pitch in with and help lead and make happen. So mostly we try to do maybe an event or speaker quarterly, and then meet over Zoom on the second Tuesday of those nights, and then do whatever planning behind the scenes beyond that. But any other questions? And I'm always good about trying to get us back on time. So.
No, thank you. Thanks, Mark. Okay. So then there are some other organization liaisons and roles, I guess. Carol, if you want
Well,
to.
just real quickly, I'm the delegate for the INC, and I did mention that at the beginning of the meeting in terms of what RNOs are and the INC. I don't know where folks want to go with this right now. I just want to briefly give you a little bit of background about this Greener Denver platform. This was presented by a gentleman named Theron Makeley. He is president of Smog Free Denver. He is a consultant, a website designer, and a marketing firm. And he brought this up. He spoke at the May INC meeting about the Greener Denver platform, which apparently was nothing new. Apparently there's been 8 to 12 years of work. This was proposed in 2020 to the Climate Action Task Force, and action plans, and again, I'm just quoting him, were essentially ignored, sidelined by the current administration. And so I sent the board members about 7 or 8 days ago, I sent you the proposal. I sent you, I believe, the YouTube recording of the meeting, and then some background information. This gentleman who represents a lot of people and a lot of other organizations in terms of the nonprofits that are supporting this is looking to have the INC vote on this in support of it and to sort of resurrect it and get it going again, and is particularly appealing to the new administration. And that was repeated several times. Apparently all the things that have been proposed, in his words, there was no need to start over because they felt they had some very strong arguments for things and some very strong actions that they could take. So he did present this. It was then sent out, and at the time they said, we'd like to know if you're, present this to your RNO, and we'd like to know in 30 days if you will vote on this if your RNO will vote on this. And I wrote back and I said, the 30 days doesn't work for us because of the timing, the dates, and when our next board meeting is. So then there was subsequently, I guess, some readjustments, and right now they would like to have a vote by July 7th, 11:45 p.m. July 7th. So I am just reminding you of this and giving you a little bit of background from this, and then you have the information that I sent, I think it was about 8 days ago. And I don't know whether folks have read it or not, but the motion is up here on the slide. And so I just need to know next steps.
So I'm happy to share my thoughts, because I feel like I've kind of weighed in, hopefully consistently, on some of these issues in the past, which is, in my view, INC views itself in an advocacy role, and our mission is not that, but is instead more education and engagement. So the only times in my history on the board when we've really engaged in advocacy was, for my view, when two things, or when I was involved at least, where two things were true. One was it was directly related to our neighborhood, and which, you can certainly make a case that a lot of these things are. And two, where we had clear consensus support from the community through one of our surveys for doing so. So I would say we should abstain generally on everything that INC asks that comes across as advocacy, except when we have asked the community what their view is in some sort of significant survey and gotten clear feedback. Because otherwise I feel like we're just, counteracting or contradicting our mission.
I will also speak. I know that in the last meeting, I have a slightly different perspective, but I do think that I don't think this is something we're necessarily going to be able to act on by July 7th. I would propose that we kind of define our terms and rules of engagement with INC a little better, because I don't think that the asks that are coming, because my question is, why do we belong to INC and pay dues to INC if our RNO is not actually contributing to the conversation that's happening at that level? But I think that that's something we need to discuss more thoroughly among our board. before even talking more openly about how do we engage the community at large, I don't think that this is something that I don't think this is something that we've discussed to the degree that we need to enable in order to act in any way on this. So I think that there can be a fine line between education and advocacy. I'm interested in seeing what that line is, but I feel like we haven't even had enough voices among our board to talk about that. And I'd like to be more intentional about that before we vote on anything for the INC. So I guess it's kind of a few steps away from what Mark is saying, but also at the same time, like for what's on the table at the moment, I don't think we can do anything but abstain right now.
Is there any way that a meeting could be called? I mean, this seems important, and I personally am really uncomfortable with our RNO always being separate from the city and acting as if we're not a part of the larger whole. Because the reason that I am a part of this is to make Denver in general a better place to live. And it seems like, you know, if we are going to be a part of the INC and pay dues to the INC, we shouldn't always abstain. Like, that's not fair. That's not being a participant. So I would, you know, is there a way to have a special meeting to discuss this? I just am frustrated by something that like actually is really a key element of our neighborhood of sustainability. Like, it seems like issues like this are pretty important and popular among our neighborhood.
Yeah, I had actually thought we were going to have that conversation about whether or not, you know, how to do that at this meeting. So I'm not sure if we're not discussing that during a board meeting, what that conversation is going to look like. So I'm open to having it now, but if others feel like we don't have time on the agenda for it, I think it'd be good to figure out when and how we're going to have that conversation. Now, I personally have no qualms with giving a tiny bit of money to INC every year to, you know, be good neighbors, even if our mission is not the same as theirs. But I also understand that if you feel that it is a little weird to be members of something and then to never vote on it. But I just, you know, as I've said, I think that advocating for things isn't our mission. If we want to, I think we just need to ask the community first, because that's kind of who we are. And personally, I feel like there's too much advocacy on behalf of residents in the city without talking to residents. And I think that causes RNOs to lose the backing of their neighborhoods when they do that. And that's what I fear for our organization, that if we do that, people will, you know, back away and will, you know, lose the ability to engage them and educate them.
Just to let you know, there's far more involved with and that benefits us from being part of the INC. It's $40 a year to have me be the delegate, to be a voting member. And anybody can attend a meeting. Y'all can attend a meeting. I mean, anybody can attend a meeting, but there is a lot of information that gets shared at those meetings that's valuable for everyone in the community, in this community and in the city. So your comment about education and advocacy, the fine line, I want to think about that. I think that that's valid. I also feel the way Jamie does as well. We're part of a city. We're Denver. And we share a lot of commonalities with our neighbors about far more specific issues than the one that's been proposed with this. This is about air pollution. This is about your children and climate change. And it's about a healthier city. This affects all of us. It affects Lakewood. It affects everybody. So I respect what Mark is saying about roles and but I also think we need to question that or understand it more thoroughly about it. Kind of goes back to why are you a member of CPUN, and what do you hope to accomplish, and how are you a good representative of your neighborhood. So I will stop with that and just ask if other folks have comments or ideas. I think that we perhaps need to set this up and have a discussion in terms of framing it and sort of things that we need to think about, questions, sort of, there needs to be a framework here. So any ideas are certainly welcome, but I'd like to hear from other folks if they wish to speak.
Can I add one more thing, Carol?
Of course.
If I'm understanding the wording of this motion correctly, it's also just trying to set the agenda for a new administration. And one of the things our neighbors complain about all the time is Suncor, right? Which is on our doorstep.
Yes.
And I mean, air quality and all of that. And so I really feel like this is about being part of Denver. It's about, it's really about, you know, health for everyone. I mean, would it be possible to immediately create a community survey after every INC motion like this to see what people think about it so we could vote?
We could do that if we wanted to, yes. It's a little bit tricky to make sure we have enough responses, but we could.
I guess like, is it possible to include that? So the next community update email is going out on Monday. Between now and Monday, could we include some of this information and request feedback by, say, July 1st or something, so that then we as a board can take an email vote based on the feedback we receive from the community?
So conceivably, yes, we could do that. We would need to determine how to quantify that information. If we simply send out an email that says, let us, give
have
us
a survey month, Jack.
Absolutely.
Like something like that that collects responses.
And a survey could be easily done, yes.
So I guess as somebody who works in survey research, what I would say is if you want it to be a quality survey that accurately reflects the community to the best of our ability, then no, because usually the standard we've set is we want to try to get to at least 1,000 responses. And that's usually taken us 3 to 4 weeks of repeated emailing. Now we could do shorter surveys. The issue you run into with a survey that is online like that, where we email it out, is you're relying on people to step in. And if it's only one topic, there's really only the people who care about that topic are going to engage, and that may not be reflective of the community as a whole. And it may be. I mean, I haven't done it on this topic. I don't know for sure what people in the community feel about this. I think the community probably likes to think of itself as being sustainable, but I don't know if they view that the same way as a lot of these very specific policy proposals list them, and how that would come out. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is if we get into the habit of doing a monthly survey, that's going to require somebody who's willing to do that every month and set aside whatever else it is that they were planning on doing. I don't think I have time to do that, so it'd have to be somebody else. And that's not easy.
This is the second time, and we had something come up this early spring, I guess, to vote on as well. But since I've been on the board, I think this is the second time that something like this has come up, where someone has come and asked the INC to support a particular issue. So it's not that common. And I can do a little bit more research in terms of with the INC board members, if this is going to be, I don't know if you can even anticipate, like, is this going to be a regular thing, or are you shifting how you're working with community members or whatever? I also don't know how many of you folks have actually read it, and to find what the details are, what the proposals are, what the actions are. And then also all of the organizations that are supporting it. I was a little like bowled over by the number of nonprofits that are supporting this. And it, to me, again, I just go back to, this is good sense. I mean, why wouldn't this be supported? Why wouldn't these actions be taken? So,
I'm sorry,
okay.
Carol. Can I ask one
Go ahead,
question?
Sarah.
So it seems to me that we all look at this and it makes a lot of sense and it seems like a really good policy. But the question seems like, are we going to shift to more of an advocacy kind of a posture or an educational type of posture that we've had in the past, which is what Mark kind of said at the beginning. And I think the question we're asking the community is not, do you support this specific thing, or we need a referendum on everything that's coming down the pipe. I think what we're asking is the community what they want us to do in terms of representing their interests. If they want us to be an education providing organization like we've been in the past, then that would be good to know. If they want us to be more advocacy oriented, then that seems like something that would be good to know. And I don't think we know the answer to that, you know, beyond even this specific question. So maybe that is something, because it seems like there's ways to gather information from the community beyond just doing surveys. I mean, it all takes time, obviously, but that's the question I don't know the answer to yet, that where I still have a little discomfort, not over this proposal in any way, more just I don't, like Mark said, we don't want to get sideways with our community and have them thinking that we're not representing them in the way they want.
Perhaps we are asking, perhaps we are combining two questions into one question here. I think on the one hand, we have a question of what is relative to this specific motion, the position of CPUN. That is a question. The second question is generally, how do we view our organization? Are we an education organization or are we an advocacy organization? But those are two separate questions, and I don't know as if we can answer the first question until we've answered the second question.
I think both Jeff and Jack make good points. And when you said what you said about advocacy, education and advocacy, I'm a teacher, and we do both in teaching, because that's really what we ultimately want children to do. That's one of the things we want them to do as citizens, is to be advocates. They pick their issues, they learn about their issues, and then they advocate. And I'm thinking about a recent group of students from Swigert, 5th graders, who learned about climate change and then advocated and acted upon it. So I'm going to think about this a little bit more, and I think you've all made very good points. And I'm going to look at this, listen to it, but thank you so much.
I just wanted to check, I know we're like way off the agenda time, but I just wanted to make sure, like, is there anybody who hasn't spoken yet who's in this meeting who would like to say something? I have a thought, but I want to hold it until folks who want to speak have had their say. So is there anybody else who'd like to say their thoughts right now?
Yeah, I'd like to weigh in. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, first of all, let me apologize for being late to the meeting. But I think this is a very important topic. When I think about all the committees that are represented here, I do think that there is both some advocacy and education going on, because we want to make sure that our neighborhood is a good place to live. And so rather than just have information, we want to make sure that people are able to make change. And so as I see our relationship with the INC, I think it only makes sense to be able to weigh in on things so that we can help make positive change. But I do also understand that in doing so, we need to have the voice of the community. So I think really the challenge is going to be, you know, when these sorts of things come up, to be able to get what the community wants, whether it be through a survey or what have you. You know, we're supposed to represent the larger part of our community, but even when we do surveys, we don't necessarily get 1,000 people. So I think that's the challenge, but I don't think it's worth our time to, you know, just throw them $40 a year just so that we can say we're supporting if we're not playing some sort of active role in it. So I definitely am for supporting or having a role to where we can be active members, but I think that we do need to think about how we are going to get input from our community.
Thank you, Mandel. Would anybody else like to speak? Okay, Mark, and then I'll speak after you if there's no one else.
So I had a alternate proposal to take to the INC that we haven't discussed at all, which is kind of related to what we have been talking about, which is I would love it if instead of asking each of the RNOs to vote on behalf of their neighborhood, if instead they said, we're going to have a survey on this issue to see what the residents of Denver think. Please share this survey with your residents and have them vote. And we shared that with our community. So if the survey itself started with them, I would be more than happy to share that repeatedly with the community and ask them to weigh in on this issue or anything else that they could then use to weigh in and could then report back to the neighborhoods about how residents from their areas potentially, you know, weighed in or by zip code or however. And I'd be happy to facilitate with that for them as well. And I think that might be, I would consider that a more conducive way for them to do their business than I feel like relying on the past methods that I appreciate started in about 1975, which is also when I started. So I appreciate the history of that, but I think it's good to modernize every once in a while. So that would be my suggestion, is that we suggest to them that we share a survey from them.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point, because something I am struck with is just kind of the top-down hierarchy of all of this. Is something I haven't, you know, if it, in my mind, if we don't have kind of clear rules of engagement and a rubric for how to proceed, I agree it's kind of a problematic, it can be a problematic structure with INC. I have a couple of points that I wanted to make. One is, it's not just a question of paying $40 a year. It's also Carol's time as our representative on INC. It's the, you know, a few hours on Saturday morning every month that she dedicates to it. And then also the time that she spends reporting out and trying to get this information out to us, the board members, let alone like anybody else in the community. So I want us to be mindful of that. It's not just the membership fee, it's also the time that Carol is putting into this. And I think we need to really have a serious discussion about, is that the best use of a board member's time if we're not going to engage that way? I think Mark makes a good point that there are other ways that INC can be gathering input that they're not. And something that I've found frustrating in these motions that they're asking groups to vote on is that there's not enough runway, and it's not the information is not contextualized in a way. I mean, it's an info dump. It's not context specific information that you then have to sort through. So I think there's a lot to be desired in how they do things. And I think it would be good to continue kind of nudging them in a better direction. This is just my personal opinion, is that Mark, you're presenting education and advocacy as a binary, and I don't think that they're mutually exclusive. And I think that's a deeper conversation that kind of goes to the question that Jack was having, is like, what does the community want? But also, what do we want as a board? We get to decide too as a board. And I think that's a conversation we need to have together. And I think that having, since we do have special topics, I think for a future meeting, talking about INC and how we engage with other RNOs, because I think more than INC, how we interact with our adjacent neighborhood RNs is actually more important to me, because that's kind of more immediately closer to our community. But also, I just want to put it out there that I think that there is real power in a collective voice. I think that that's part of why many of us have joined CPUN, is to kind of join together with our neighbors, like it's United Neighbors, to make our community better and make our city better. And so Safe Streets, like, is a committee that is more clearly, like, there's education, but advocacy is a part of that mission. And a few of our other committees also have advocacy or advocacy adjacent pieces. So I want us to not be afraid of, like, really thinking deeply about, okay, what does this look like and how do we frame it for folks? If we do want to affect some kind of change or show people how to affect some kind of change. But I also think we're kind of beyond the scope of this agenda item in this specific meeting.
Good points.
So can we table the discussion on the zoning and planning bullet point? Because we can talk about that, but basically I think that's I think Jack and Amanda, were you the folks who were formerly on the former Citizens Advisory Board?
So the Citizens Advisory Board doesn't exist anymore.
No, I know, and I think that it was going to be replaced by representatives from CPUN.
So the role, yeah, so the really quick and simple version is that CAB has gone away, recognizing that CPUN is able to fulfill and do the things that CAB was doing. The CAB had two responsibilities. They had a voting seat on the SDC Design Review Committee, and they had a voting seat on the board of directors of the Stapleton Development Corporation. They asked that CPUN appoint an individual to serve in both of those voting seats. It has to date been me, and that is what we do on the zoning and planning front.
Can you give us updates, I guess, then on that? I guess in maybe among emails, just when do you meet? What are the decisions that get made, I guess, at those meetings?
Yeah, SDC's met once in the last SDC's met once in the last year and shared an affordable housing plan, and I did share that with everyone. But if additional information is available, I will include the group with it. But there's not a whole lot happening on that front.
Got it.
And
likely
then the other responsibility. Oh, Jack, sorry, I'm having a hard time with reception. There have not been any of the zoning and planning meetings. Is that right?
That's correct. Every parcel in this neighborhood that has not yet been developed is spoken for, and plans are more or less in progress. So there has not been a lot of interest in that, because everything is more or less just waiting to be turned from dirt into buildings. I will say that we should expect an update in the coming months regarding the final portion of land off of 40th Avenue and Central Park Boulevard. It is, from my understanding, going to be high density housing, and there will be a request for community engagement on that planning front in the next couple of months. But the anticipation is that that is truly the last place that will be built. It will be the last filing, the last park. We are very close to the end here on a development front.
Got it. Thank you. Okay, so we'll stay tuned for that. Oh.
Liz, I was just going to make a comment. I think that this also plays into the INC discussion, because in the past, we have not had to go to the city for zoning and planning changes because that was part of the development. Yeah. And I think that is also part of the transition that will make us less different than other RNOs as we move forward. Because as changes in the neighborhood, we're 20 years old, there will be things torn down, there will be things rebuilt. And I think that will change. So I think that we have to, while this zoning and planning, we need to figure out how we want to address those things, because we are notified of all of those things that are going on, and we should be the conduit for the neighborhood to get their input. And that is a difficult situation when you've got 30,000 people trying to find out if they want to, allow this zoning exception, et cetera.
Yeah. No, I have struggled to think about how to include that. How we include that in the emails, but that only reaches a portion of the neighborhood. I guess, Jack, would the MCA include like the excise and licenses and zoning notices from the city in any of its updates possibly to reach the property owners?
We could have that discussion. I don't believe that there is interest among many people in if people are interested in their neighbors' 6 foot versus 8 foot fence, those people tend to make their opinion pretty clear and don't need somebody to come asking for it. But we can certainly look at the best way to communicate that information. Absolutely. I will say to Brian's comment, the design declaration covenant. So in this neighborhood, it is if you have 2 HOAs. Actually, some places have 3 HOAs, but there was a SDC, which is the DBA for the Stapleton Development Corporation, has recorded a restrictive covenant against all the properties for design criterion. So before, if somebody wanted to tear down a building, a structure, and build something new there, before they can even go talk to the city about it, they would have to first obtain the approval of the what is called the Stapleton Design Review Board. There has been conversation about changing that name. We do fulfill a voting seat in me on that board, so we do uniquely have a voice in design, zoning, and planning issues that is unusual than the rest of the city, and we will retain that authority forever because it's a restrictive covenant recorded across all the real property in this neighborhood.
Got it. Thank you.
Thanks, Jack.
Questions? Yeah, thank you. Or we can move on. We can move on to the next slide. We have 18 minutes left on our time, and I know we have a number of other agenda items. So, but I think these are important conversations we've been having. So, even if it's not completely conclusive now, I think it gets to the heart of some of what we as this next board, like how we exist as this board right now. I think these are the next questions we'll be able to tackle. Okay.
So my only question is, when are we going to discuss this? Is this going to be something that we just follow up over email? Or do we want to try and schedule something now, or how do you want to, because I don't want this just to go undiscussed until we come around the next meeting or whatever. So what do you guys think about a follow-up discussion about this?
If I could propose, I was going to suggest, if folks are interested, that we use either one of our monthly board meeting times or during the outreach meeting 1 month, to actually have a facilitated discussion with that's moderated by Steve Charbonneau, who I know was involved when the name changed in facilitating those discussions. But I think since we have many new board members, I think it would be worth kind of revisiting, having a facilitated discussion or a moderated discussion as a board to talk about our mission and the education advocacy piece and kind of the rules of engagement in how we want to work with INC, how we want to approach or collaborate with other neighborhood organizations. But I think that it needs to be not just us talking to each other, but somebody helping us to guide that conversation. So I see in the chat. And yeah, I am happy after this meeting to reach out to Steve Charbonneau and see what his availability is, and then send out a doodle poll to see when we can schedule that conversation. Are folks good with that? Thumbs up if you are. All right, speak now or forever hold your peace. All right, I'll email Steve and send out a doodle. Thanks. All right, I think we can move on to the next slide. Okay, so summer planning, no July meeting, it's for committee planning. I'll repost that, the Google form where folks can express their interest, particularly if you're a new CPUN board member, please, I believe part of the commitment is to join at least one committee. So please send in your interest in the different committees that were just presented on. At the July meetings for committees, talk about who will take on leadership roles. If you need new chairs or co-chairs, what are the goals for the coming months, and any potential events, which then leads into the third bullet point, is to talk about budget requests for an August discussion and vote during our monthly meeting. And so if you are having any events, something that we did for our event is we made a budget request just for food and refreshments at our playground meetup. So that's, you know, a very practical kind of budget request that you could come up with in July. And then I guess, how do we want to do this? The board discussion, I think we had wanted to just kind of, for folks to talk about, why am I on the CPUN board? What roles do you want the committees? I guess roles of the committees, like what is that, the roles of the committees within the organization, or what sort of roles folks want on the committees?
And I think that's up for rethinking.
Okay.
And especially if the roles, like Amy and I have talked about, what is it that we want to do in 23 and in 24? And what will that then require in order to enact?
Yeah.
So I think there just needs to be some thinking about that, and then perhaps committees can help one another in terms of sharing what you're doing in that capacity, in terms of the roles of the committees and why you're on the board to begin with.
Could we have that discussion, since we have so little time left in the meeting? Can we move that to potentially the meeting with Steve Charbonneau?
I think it makes sense to do that.
Okay, I think that, so those are the questions that we should be thinking about as we go into the facilitated meeting. So consider it kind of a board retreat that we'll schedule with Steve Charbonneau. For anybody who doesn't know, Steve Charbonneau is the city mediator. So he is, you know, he basically has a contract with the city. I believe that's why we can get this, we would be able to have him facilitate the discussion for free for our RNO. And he is very skilled at conflict resolution and just kind of goal setting. I've worked with him through my day job on a number of issues, and would look forward to working with him for our board. So if folks are okay with that, we'll table the questions of why am I on the CPUN board, what we want to do with committees for that conversation with Steve. Are we good? All right, let's move on to the next slide. Is the public left for public comments? I think we've lost a few folks.
I actually, if it's okay, I'll take my opportunity to make public comment. Since I live in the neighborhood, I know Chris spoke earlier, but I just wanted to say thank you. Brian and Mark and Amanda were some of the first people that I met when I joined the city over 10 years ago, and I cannot believe I'm even saying those words. And y'all have pretty much been stuck with me every single month for the last 10 years. And I just want to say thank you so much. It has been a pleasure to work with you. I have learned a ton from you and with you, and we would not have been as successful as we were without your partnership. So from the official city side, thank you so much for being great partners in my work and my job. And as a resident, thank you for what you do. So this is my last official meeting with the District 8 office, and I just wanted to take a moment to let you know how grateful that I am for all of you and your partnership over the years and what we've been able to do together. So thank you.
Thanks, Amanda.
Amanda, we know how much you've done for Chris, and we know how much you've done for the neighborhood, so we appreciate it.
Thank you, Amanda. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, I just want to personally thank you for showing up to so many of our meetings and giving us updates and informing us.
Been my pleasure.
Thanks, everyone. I think we thank you, and I think we can, I guess if we don't have anybody else speaking, we can move to the next slide.
We already talked about the budget. This is just a snapshot, so I don't need to spend any time on this. People, if you have questions, it'll be out on the recording. So we're in good shape, and I think we do need to plan appropriately for the next year or two.
Great.
I have one thing to say, one question about the budget, sorry. I see that we're getting the MCA donation, which is terrific, because that's great that they support us as an organization. Is there any thought to maybe reallocating? Maybe this is something we need to discuss as a board. In the past, we've given a portion of the money or all of the money to a designated charity, to schools, to the firehouse, to different types of organizations. That seems like something that as we are, building a reserve, it might be something to consider going forward. It's nice as us as an organization be able to give back into the community financially if there's a cause that we want to support each year. I like the idea of doing that. So I just want to throw that out there, maybe table it for a future discussion potentially.
And Jeff, the only thing is that we're at the peak right now because of that, but the conversation about nation builder, we were building the reserve, and we had made the choice a couple of years ago to fund nation builder through some of that. And so I think that's part of the conversation. The reality is our reserve would get us probably 2 more years into nation builder, and that's something that Mandel and Mark are working on that we're going to have the discussion. So
okay, fair enough. Yeah.
Great. And I guess Mark and Mandel, with that, just really quickly on the nation builder alternative, if folks are interested in that, should they see you about the outreach committee for getting more involved in that, or is that something you'd report out on to the whole board at one of our meetings?
So I think in general, they can report to the communications, and we can kind of talk about where we are with things, and then we can go from there, because we will have to report back to the board once we have all of our information and what our opportunities to do are.
Okay.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that.
All right, thank you. Okay, next item, next slide. 2023-24 planning discussion. I guess does the next slide provide us with some guidance on that? Okay, so Mark, some of the planning we have to do is around the survey.
Sorry, it took me a second to find my unmute button. I don't know. I don't remember what the slide was about. So yes, the survey is one of the things we need to talk about. The budget items we just covered over regarding committee budget requests, as well as the nation builder discussion would be part of it, I think, as well. So I would say each of those items are things that we, the other part, though, I think that this may have been intended for, is also thinking about who our featured speakers are each month, which we've covered a little bit there. And I know you had some thoughts already on some of that September, October, November timeframe as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you wanted to if you had thoughts that were ready about that for the board or not.
Well, I think that in terms of the speakers, since we'll have new electeds, a new executive branch, I think filling out the September and October with either town hall style Q&A meet and greet meetings with the kind of new city council, whether the new mayor or a representative from the mayor's office would like to speak. I think that those would be pretty easy. And then we also have the school board race coming up, and ballots will go out in October for that. So I think if education committee could help organize I guess a forum
Right.
along the lines of what you've done. I think that takes us through the fall, and then I think we don't meet in December, so we can talk about what we would want in November, but I'm happy to put together a spreadsheet that folks can populate with other potential speakers or topics. But I feel like we're going to be hitting it. We're going to be working towards a new normal in the city and in our neighborhood. And I wouldn't want to plan too much further ahead than this fall to see what materializes. How do other folks feel about that?
Liz, Jeff had a few,
Okay.
had a few open ones from the last meeting too. We need to go back and look at that deck. He had a couple
Yep.
of that we had kind of on hold, so.
Yep. That's Jeff Horsfall, just for clear. But yeah, I can go back into that and we can decide and then the outreach to folks will start there. But I think that we're not meeting next month, but then we will, if we're not meeting with Steve Charbonneau for our August meeting, then we can start doing the reach outs for who will speak at that one. So I think we can follow up by email on what that will look like. All right. So the survey, Mark, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, sure. One of the things that I would also recommend committees talk to their committees about, and this will be an annual request now, I hope, is in your planning in July. Think about what kind of questions you would like included in a fall survey. Usually we try to do it over the course of an entire month. We usually set a goal of having it ready to go in October, and we usually miss our goal and have it ready to go in November. So plan for October, please, and don't assume that we're going to wait till November, because we may get ambitious, or we may have some sort of timely issue that we need to include, and we definitely don't want to fall towards December, because the holidays can really mess with the ability to get people to take a survey with the travel and whatnot. I would especially suggest that you look first at whatever questions were submitted last year and say, is this something we want to ask each year to get a sense of improvement, change, et cetera on? So for example, in sustainability, there's a few questions that I've already talked to some folks about updating and changing or revising, but also keeping year to year, so to see if we're making progress on some things that we've set as goals. Because it's a good way, in setting goals, to have a way to measure if you're making progress. And that's one of the goals of the survey, is to be able to do that. The other goal is often to hopefully look ahead at what issues each of the committees will be looking at for the following year, and hopefully bring to the board some sort of proposal that you'd like to say, hey, we want to advocate or focus on this, and we strongly believe that the community agrees with us on this, and we'd like to use this survey as an opportunity to demonstrate that. Again, one of the ways we manage this survey to help facilitate that is we try to have multiple issues in a survey, so that it's not just people interested in education who have kids in schools who are taking it. It's not just people who are interested in whatever businesses are coming who take the survey. We want all people we want a broad range of residents to take the survey, because there's something in it that interests them. That said, please try to keep your list short, because we always have too long of a list of questions, and it gets a little challenging sometimes to pare it down or to shorten it. I am more than happy to work with you on how to frame those questions for those of you who are new or who don't know. I've been working in public opinion research and polling for I think 24 years now, or close to 24 years now. So I have a little bit of experience with helping to figure out how do you ask that. More than happy to help everyone. So even if you just have in August a list of 3 things that you want to find out about, I can then offer up a couple different ways to ask about that may get to what you're looking for. I've done it probably hundreds of times now, where I have a different client or a different organization where they want to find out about something. And usually the worst way to do it is to just say, what do you think about this? Please tell me in 5,000 characters or more. That's not a good way to get a good response, unfortunately, but there are other ways that we can, and I'm more than happy to help you with that. If you want to look at last year's results for any particular questions, I can dig that back up and find it for you as well. So just send me an email to either maringer@gmail.com, or if you can't spell that, secretary@centralparkunitedneighbors.com. And I'm happy to share that info.
Sorry, Mark, could you actually email out what the survey questions were last year so that to the board, so that folks can easily look at the questions? And
I
get a
think
sense
so.
of-
That's actually a more challenging request than it sounds
Oh.
like, because of the way the SurveyMonkey software works. But I think I can go in there and send out something, or go through my email and figure out what was the final draft of it, to get a sense of it. Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, and then next slide, have we hit the end? Yes. Questions?
So much for only 90 minutes, Liz. Good job on your first meeting.
One
Oh, is that a
minute.
goal? Sorry, I'm used to the 2 hours. I was about to compliment you at hitting it almost exactly at 2 hours. I was going to say that's impressive.
Even while we wandered further afield in the discussion. But yeah, if nobody has any questions or comments, we can follow up. I think follow up with the board by email, and then just as a reminder, Jack will be sending out the community update email on Monday. So please get any committee report outs, any upcoming events you want him to include, ideally with the kind of like who, what, when, where, and why information, easily accessible, and a link to further information. So it just makes his job easy. And then Jack, when is the deadline for getting you items? Monday morning? If he's not there, okay, we'll say Monday morning, and I think we can all say good night.
I would suggest earlier than Monday morning. That's
Earlier
pretty
than
late
Monday
to
morning?
send items. Yeah.
Okay.
I would, especially because he's got I believe, a full-time job over the summer. So that probably requires him to be focused on that Monday morning. I would suggest end of day Saturday at the latest.
Okay, all right. I think that sounds fair. End of day Saturday. And we will see you all over email. Have a great summer. And we'll see you again in August.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone.
Thanks, Liz. Bye.